Thank you. I'm really needing your help in being more patient. I just seem to be in a hurry about everything, basically. And it seems like I always have been, at least in this lifetime.
Well, that means your guidance system is working. Everything that everybody wants, no matter what it is, a material object, a state of being, money, relationship, every single thing that everybody wants is because they think they will feel better in the having of it. And feeling better is about alignment with source energy. So we're glad that you're impatient about misalignment. In other words...
But I never seem to be satisfied with where I am or what I have or the moment. I mean, we think
that this will soothe you a little bit, what you've heard here today, because you see, we tease all of you. In fact, it's actually quite mean of us when we begin, as we say, and all of those unfulfilled desires are still pleasing you enormously, because most of you, even if you say yes, don't really mean yes. What you really mean is, I would like these things that are on my list to be fulfilled. And what you're beginning to hear from us here today is that, let us go back to the mean part. We want to say to you, there is no good reason for your desires to be less than fresh. In other words, we think your environment should keep hatching new desires, but we don't think that you should ever have to endure old, stale desires, because the universe is knocking itself out to accommodate you. And you darn well ought to be receiving the things that you're wanting in a more timely manner. And if you're not, we think impatience is the appropriate emotion. So, we think what's transitioning within you here as a result of what you've been hearing from us really recently is when you make an emotional journey rather than the actual journey, you can find that better feeling place right now. And then your impatience will subside, and so will your fear and any negative emotion that you have. And when that subsides, the resistance is gone, or at least lessening, and then motion forward can be felt. So can you feel the cycle? What you're saying is, I want that, and the fact that it's not coming fast enough makes me feel this way, and the fact that I feel this way is keeping that from coming.
Right.
Isn't it interesting? Let's go through that again. I want that, and the fact that that isn't coming makes me feel this way, and the fact that I feel this way keeps it from coming. So what's the solution? I got to feel differently about that in order to let it in. Mm-hmm. We've been talking about this. Physical friends will say, well, if I could just have that, then I will feel better. We say, we know you will, but you got to feel better, and then you can have that. And what's confusing to many of you is that sometimes you're letting it in and sometimes you're not letting it in, but until you are consciously letting it in, then you can't really tell when you're letting it in or when you're not letting it in. That's the work, friends, and we know sometimes it feels like work. In other words, it's not the easiest thing to find feelings that feel foreign. You sort of have to insist on finding the better feeling. But at the heart of all of this has to be this resounding determination. I want to feel good. I want so much to feel good. I want so much to feel good that I'm not going to beat this drum that doesn't feel good anymore.
Well, see, that's part of my question about the impatience, because I've just always been very ambitious and curious and wanted a lot and been impatient about it. But, all these years I didn't know how to get what I wanted, and so I did a lot of...
Well, where does impatience fall on this scale? In other words, but it's not that bad either. And so let's talk about it. So here is appreciation and love and joy and passion and all of that. And here is frustration and overwhelmment. And impatience has got to be sort of right in there with those. In other words, impatience means I've got a hot desire that's active within me that I can't see a way of fulfilling. And we say, bless you, you're alive. In other words, energy's flowing through you. And wouldn't you rather feel impatient than bored? We would rather that you felt impatient than bored. Wouldn't you rather feel impatient than afraid or than lost? In other words, you were describing yourself as lost just a little bit ago. We think that's far too far down on the emotional scale. Impatience just says, I've got some active desires and I don't necessarily know how they're going to unfold. But impatience that is muted or soothed or mixed with a feeling of, I know things will work out, I just don't know how. Or, I know it will come to me eventually, I wish it would come sooner than later. There's not anything so awful with that feeling of impatience. In fact, impatience, we think that the optimum creative experience is to be standing in this place where you're saying, I am wanting more, I am wanting more, I am wanting more, and then soothe it by saying, I'm ready for more, and it's coming in good time. But I'm wanting more, it's coming. I'm wanting more, it's coming. That's not a bad vibrational state of being.
But I don't think that's where I am. I think it's more like I'm wanting more. Maybe I shouldn't have said lost, because I don't feel lost. It's like I just haven't kind of found. I know what I want, but I haven't.
But what you keep saying to us is, I know what I want, but I don't know how to get it. Mm-hmm. So our question back to you is, you know what you want? Can you conjure the feeling of it? In other words, can you hear us when we say the emotional journey is not trying to figure out how to get it. Mm-hmm. The emotional journey is trying to figure out how to feel it. So you want to get to the place where your friend says, why are you so happy? Did you get that job? And you say, no, I'm just dreaming about it. And your friend says, what, are you nuts? You didn't get it and you're so happy. And you say, I've been fantasizing around it. I've been planning. I've been feeling it. I dreamed about it last night. I can sniff out different aspects of it. I'm collecting data about it. I saw someone doing this and I wrote it down. Like some of that. I saw someone doing this and I wrote it down. Like some of that. In other words, there's some of what you want all around you in lots of different places, you see.
Just in general, though, how can I feel more satisfied in the moment, more relaxed in the moment? I really have difficulty with that, which I equate to the impatience. Like I just want more, I want to be over there, I want faster, further, now.
Well, we want to announce to you in a way that doesn't upset you that this is the way eternal beings often feel. You have a sense of awareness that you will never get it done, and yet a determination to get some of it done. Mm-hmm. And we want you to just try to relax into the notion that you're not ever going to get it done, so you might as well get comfortable with the idea of the incompletion of it. In other words, you should see Esther. It is so funny. She has a to-do list that has become a notebook. Partitioned off appropriately. And as fast as she crosses something off her list, she thinks of something else. So the first day it's a 1-page to-do today list. The second day it's a 2-page to-do today list. And what she's beginning to discover is the more she finds that she likes to do, the more ideas of what she would like to do come on. And the balance of life is always keeping what you're asking for and what's flowing in sort of in balance. In other words, you don't want to get so many things on your list you get overwhelmed, but it's lovely to have enough things on your list that it calls you and makes you sort of hit the floor running in an eager sort of sensation every morning, you see. And so we would never do anything to try to get the impatience out of you, because we think that eternal calling is part of what you are describing as impatience. But there's a big difference between knowing that you are eternal and feeling good about what's unfolding, and knowing that you are eternal and feeling bad about what's unfolding. So just relax. A lot's going to shift for you already. You'll notice it right away. Don't try so hard to articulate it in an analytical way. Try a little harder to feel it in an emotional way. And so you want to start letting words come out of your mouth such as, well, I'm feeling more satisfied today. I'm feeling more content today. I'm reaching for feelings of greater contentment. I'm reaching for feelings of appreciation. You know, you're close enough to appreciation. If you'd get on some rampages of appreciation, you'd clean this all up fast. You have so much in your experience to appreciate. So many things that are going so well that as you focus upon them just a little bit, you'd move right into that vibration. You are an easier fix than your words lead everyone to believe, because your vibration is not as far from what would really feel good as you think it is. You're just really picky about the way you feel. And we like that. We really like that, in other words. And that's that feeling of impatience. We wouldn't put up with it for a minute. We would not for a moment watch a movie that began to not feel good. When we started hearing that gruesome music coming on, we'd get off of there very fast. We would not drive consistently on a road that is bumpy and irritating. We would find another route. We would not talk regularly with someone who annoys us. We would find other people to spend our time with. In other words, we are not encouragers of putting up with stuff that makes you feel bad. We are encouragers of demanding that you feel better. But we are also not encouragers of scrambling around trying so hard to change circumstances. We are strong encouragers of finding ways to feel better without changing the circumstances, and then watching how quickly the circumstances will change.
Thank you very much.
Jerry and Esther will get on a bumpy road and they will complain about it. And then they will intuitively choose route after route that is bumpy. But if they will get on a road that they appreciate and they will really rev up the appreciation, then they will intuitively choose routes that are smoother. It is uncanny. In other words, the next road is a direct response to the last vibration they activated. True of everything in your experience. That was good. That was really good. Law of attraction says, if you're in the mode of depression, you don't have access to bliss. You can't even get a whiff of the vibration of bliss. Even if you are in frustration, you cannot follow your bliss. In other words, the trail's too cold. So when you begin to understand that your emotions are your key to your self-discovered alignment with who you really are, and you really care so much about the way you feel that you begin to choose things to talk about, choose television programs, choose books to read, choose people you hang out with, choose memories, choose things you fantasize. When it becomes really, really important to you that you feel good, what you're actually saying is, I've activated my awareness to my own guidance system, and I'm sniffing out the trail that will lead me eventually, maybe not immediately, to full alignment with who I really am. As you reach for the relief and you find it, then doesn't it follow that there's no place you cannot go? And you know, we've never seen any of you, and we've seen all of you. We've never seen any of you want anything that was for any other reason than you think you will feel better in the finding of it. And when you show yourself that you can take this emotional journey first, then you're free, because the manifestational journey will follow. In other words, once you change your emotion, you've changed your vibration. Better said, once you've changed your vibration, you change the way you feel. But once you change the way you feel, you are a different place unto the universe. You're standing in a different vibrational place. And law of attraction is responding to you differently than only a few minutes ago when you were in depression, or when you were in rage, or when you were in anger, or even when you were in frustration. A little bit of tweaking of the way you feel means you've changed your vibrational stance. And when you change your vibrational stance, everything in your world begins to change. Traffic around you changes. People that you rendezvous with changes. The luck or thrill of life changes. Everything begins to change. From our viewpoint, we have a sort of aerial view. It's like we see all of this stuff lined up outside your door. And here you are beating the drum of something that you do not want, not even realizing that you're doing it. Where when you deliberately start beating a little better feeling drum and a little better feeling drum and a little better feeling drum, what begins to happen is all kinds of things that you have been wanting, you now begin to allow into your experience. There is only a stream of well-being that flows, that's all. There is no source of evil. You can disallow the well-being. There is no source of sickness. You can disallow the wellness. In other words, the stream of well-being flows. And as you practice feeling good, but then something really important has to click in. Maybe it will today for you. Maybe it'll take longer. We'll try to help it happen today. You got to get selfish. You got to care how you feel. And you got to care how you feel more than you care about anything else. If you don't care mostly about how you feel, now you don't have access to your own guidance system. And if you don't have access to your own guidance system, then you can't tell what the next logical step is. You can't feel your path. You can't tell which way you're going unless you begin practicing reaching for the relief. We are eager to talk with you about anything that is important to you. There is no order of business in the sense that there is anything off limits. Every question is welcomed. You may discover a comfortable unfolding. In other words, sometimes some questions in the room are better put before others, and so don't feel uncomfortable if you are not called on immediately or ever